first?
Again, I'm sure that, for your viewers here tonight, I want you to know that most Canadians are absolutely outraged about this. They're outraged because of the payment itself, how the payment happened, and the fact that, the way that it's happened has probably preempted and prevented Tabitha Speer from seizing any of those assets. So,
assets belonging to the father of this man, to Khadr's father.
That's correct. So, I think while a lot of your viewers have just seen this statement, they should also know that most Canadians, I think, are quite outraged and quite disappointed by this state of affairs.
It doesn't seem just. I mean, there are probably a lot of people in Canada, including some who've probably been mistreated legitimately by the Canadian government, who could use $10.5 million. How did this guy get it?
Well, and the thing to recognize here is this was a settlement. This wasn't any sort of payment that was awarded by a Canadian court. This lawsuit that Mr. Khadr had filed was being litigated, and there was no court ruling, right? This was something that the government decided. And so what was disappointing for me as a legislator and many of my colleagues was that this decision happened after our House of Commons, which is, similar to your Congress,
yes,
rose for the summer. So right now we're not sitting, right? We usually have an opportunity to ask questions like, why did this happen? What was the government's motivation? And that didn't happen. So I think that that's where there's a lot of concern about this particular decision,
yes,
that it's been made in a bit of a vacuum. And now we're just getting dribs and drabs.
So why was it made? Why did the Prime Minister do that?
That's really a question for him. I think many Canadians would have preferred to have seen this play out in a court of law. The Prime Minister has said that this was done for some sort of, financial reason to save money. But the reality is that this was a decision that was made by his government and not by a court of law. And I think that that's quite confusing and quite outrageous for many, many Canadians.
So there's an effort online in Canada to raise money for the family of Christopher Speer, Tabitha Speer, but also for the other soldier who was gravely wounded.
That's right. Spearkids.ca. I think that the last time I checked, there was close to $200,000 that had been raised by the Canadian public. And what you have to understand too, that this is not like a partisan political issue. This is something that people who actually voted for this government are going, I'm not comfortable with this, right? You have to understand that Canada values, the relationship that we have in terms of our men and women in uniform serving shoulder to shoulder with each other. And I think that there's a lot of people that are just going, how did this happen and why? And again, that's a question for our Prime Minister to answer.
Why wouldn't he call the widow of Christopher Speer first?
Again, I'm sure that's something that he should answer for, but I know that our former Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, has reached out to her. I can't imagine being her right now and listening to all of this coverage and having to have those wounds reopened. I think that we have to be cognizant about her and compassionate to her and her family in the first instance here. And then, to me, that's at the core of Canadian outrage over this.